There are approximately over 560 species of birds of prey alive in the world today, including eagles, hawks, falcons, vultures, kites, and so on. There are also around 250 species of owl across the world, and although these are usually classified as being slightly separate from diurnal birds of prey, they have many features in common. Both groups of these predatory birds have numerous features which they share in common with each other that are not seen in other groups of birds, and are usually identified as defining characteristics when separating them from other species, though in every case, there's always an exception to the rule. One of the more obvious characteristics about birds of prey and owls is their sharp talons and hooked beaks, along with the fact that they are obligate carnivores, feeding only on the meat of other animals. While numerous bird species will occasionally indulge in carnivory, these groups are by far the most specialized, and for the most part are incapable of supplementing their diet on other foods such as fruit or seeds. Perhaps the most glaring exception to this rule is a species living across most of Africa, the palm nut vulture. This striking-looking species is a member of the group known as Old World vultures, and might actually be the smallest in this group. As its name implies, this is one of the only species of birds of prey that engages in herbivory, most frequently associated with oil and raffia palm tree plantations. Fruits from both of these plants form the majority of this bird's diet, hence its name, with the vultures being especially drawn to the fleshy fruit husks of the oil palms. These nuts provide the bird with a rich food source, but they are also especially oily, with a large kernel and little pulp, which is often not even completely digestible to these birds. When feeding on palm fruit, palm nut vultures will actually hang upside down below the fruit, and then pull the palm nut off the tree with their hooked beaks, and then hold it in their feet to feed, in much the same way as other raptors do so, except they are doing so of course with actual animal prey. Once again, these birds seem to prefer eating the fleshy husks of this fruit when feeding, and will sometimes discard much of the kernel inside. Palm nut vultures also feed on a wide range of other fruits, including wild dates and even oranges. In fact, fruits make up more than 60% of an adult palm nut vulture's diet, and up to 90% of a juvenile bird's diet. They have even been known to occasionally feed on grains and acacia seeds, a very unusual food indeed for a bird of prey. However, these very unfussy eaters still retain the physical characteristics of their vulturine relatives, and although they do mostly feed on plant matter, they are still not strictly vegetarians. As shown here, they do still sometimes feed on carrion, but they will also occasionally hunt small mammals, birds and reptiles, as well as numerous insects, mollusks and crustaceans. With such a unique dietary biology, the palm nut vulture is quite the rule breaker when it comes to what makes a true bird of prey, as virtually no other species is such an omnivore in its nature, but that seems to be one of the main reasons why the palm nut vulture is perhaps one of the most abundant vultures alive in Africa today. Another defining characteristic observed in diurnal birds of prey and owls is reverse sexual dimorphism. More specifically, in nearly every species, the females are almost always considerably larger than the males. The size gap between males and females across different species does vary. For example, in the peregrine, the female or falcon is on average a third larger than the male or tiercel. Indeed, the term tiercel derives from the French word tiercy, meaning 1/3, a reference to how much smaller he is than his mate. In some species, the size difference seems to be even greater. For instance, in smaller accipiters or true hawks like this sparrowhawk, the females appear to be 30 to 50% larger than the males. In some cases, including in this scenario, the males are also slightly different in coloration to the females. This size difference between males and females is also notable in most owl species, where once again the females are considerably bigger than the males, though in some cases this size differentiation is not always that apparent until the two are side by side. The reasons for such extreme sexual dimorphism in both birds of prey and owls is still not fully understood, though it is believed that this size differentiation does have ecological benefits for various species, including reduced interspecies competition for prey in a singular area, and also numerous advantages for female birds when incubating eggs and defending nests. Once again, however, there are exceptions to the rule. The aptly named powerful owl, which lives in southeast Australia and looks unusually hawk-like for an owl, is one of a few owl species where the males are in fact larger than the females. It is in fact the largest owl species on the continent, with males weighing between 2.5 and 3.8 pounds, while females are 2.2 to 3.5 pounds. As apex predators in their native distribution, powerful owls hunt a range of smaller birds and mammals in their habitat, including various marsupials, and during the nesting season, as is usually the case in other species of raptors, the male does most of the hunting while the female incubates. In most other owl species, the larger female is the main aggressor when defending her nest from interlopers, but in the case of the powerful owl, the larger male will aggressively defend the nesting area during the brooding stage. Powerful owls are also highly territorial birds, with males known to fight each other over breeding rights for females as well as for a new territory. This kind of change in size difference between the sexes, as well as various other ecological behaviours, can also be observed in the powerful owl's close relative, the rufous owl. A few species of diurnal birds of prey also break this rule, with reverse sexual dimorphism seeming to play a less prevalent role in New World vulture species, for example. The largest of all living birds of prey, the Andan Condor, is perhaps most notable in this regard, with male birds being noticeably larger than females. The males also differ from the females by having a fleshy comb on the top of their head, almost like that of a rooster, and during the breeding season, the bare skin on his neck and wattles changes from a dull red coloration to a more vibrant yellowish one. These brighter colours, along with his fleshy comb, along with perhaps his great size, are almost certainly adaptations almost exclusively used for courtship rituals, making him more attractive to females. Both male and female birds will cement their bond with elaborate courtship rituals like this one. Another very common characteristic of birds of prey and owls is their solitary nature. They typically hunt prey alone and are highly territorial, many species of which are not tolerant of other raptors in their airspace, or even other members of their own kind if they intrude on their territory. Peregrine falcons can be one of the most territorial, and are themselves usually solitary hunters. However, they do sometimes hunt cooperatively, but usually only as a pair, that being a female or falcon and a tiercel or male, which are almost always mated breeding partners. Falcons and tiercels are often observed hunting together in the winter months, especially when large flocks of wintering songbirds and wading birds are highly abundant. Working in tandem, they will often simultaneously chase birds into a certain direction or corral large flocks of birds into tight formations, hoping to pick off potential stragglers, while attacking them on both sides. The medium-sized Appamado Falcon from Central and South America, however, is perhaps the best known species of falcon known for hunting in pairs. Once again, mated pairs of these birds will simultaneously chase birds on the wing, and will even hunt prey on or near the ground, with one bird flushing the prey from cover while the other gives chase. On rare occasions, Appamado falcons have been observed hunting in larger groups, but this is a rarity, though this unusually social hunting behaviour in comparison to other falcon species is why Appamados are referred to as being semi-gregarious. Some of the smallest members of the falcon family appear to be even more gregarious still. For instance, the BlackThigh Falconet, possibly the smallest bird of prey in the world, is unusually social, with pairs of these birds often seen in close proximity, sometimes even engaging in allopreening as a way to strengthen their bonds. As well as forming loose pairs, however, these tiny falcons are also known to gather in groups of up to 10 or more individuals, and will actually engage in feeding behaviour together often gathering on a single perch and dashing out to grab small insects and birds as they pass by. Larger aggregations of individuals belonging to the same species are also noted to happen in larger raptors, most notably bald eagles, for example. Bald eagles are known to gather in their thousands in areas such as Alaska, where the harsh conditions of winter forces birds to take advantage of certain food sources, such as mass gatherings of fish or waterfowl. However, while these eagles do engage in some social behaviour, for instance juveniles observing older birds hunting and then learning from them, they don't exactly cooperate their hunting between individuals. More often than not, in fact, they actually fight over and steal food from each other. These mass gatherings are therefore more of an opportunistic aggregation brought on by environmental conditions, rather than anything truly social or altruistic. There are a few species of diurnal raptor, however, which are truly social in their nature, and perhaps the best known of these is the Harris hawk. Living across North, Central and South America, Harris hawks are perhaps most social in their nature in the northern parts of their range, particularly the Arizona desert. Harris hawks often live in large family groups ranging between 4 and 12 individuals, which in falconry terms is known as a caste. Often referred to as the wolves of the air, Harris hawk groups often consist of both adult and juvenile birds, and while they are certainly effective hunters on their own, they are even more deadly when working as a group, with individuals each playing their part in locating, flushing and chasing down prey, which can range from the size of a tiny rodent to a fully grown jackrabbit or even a great blue heron, which they have been known to tackle in the wild. They are also highly social and cooperative in their breeding behaviour, with females sometimes mating with and raising young with 2 separate males or vice versa, with young from previous nesting seasons even sticking around and helping their parents raise the next generation of offspring. A breeding behaviour that is usually unheard of in most other diurnal raptor species. After the Harris hawk, the only quote-unquote hawk known to engage in social behaviour is the Galapagos hawk, which sometimes hunts for prey in pairs or even trios on the islands of the Galapagos. Another category of raptors known for being highly social are the Caracaras, which at first seem to be mostly hawk-like, but in reality are members of the falconiform family, making them close cousins of true falcons. Unlike their faster and more famous falcon relatives, these highly intelligent birds are both predators and scavengers and frequently gather in large numbers where they will actually cooperate with each other to hunt. On the Falkland Islands, the striated caracara is perhaps among the most social of these birds, especially amongst juvenile individuals who will band together in especially large groups, sometimes made up of dozens of individuals, all in the search for food on the island, where they will hunt a wide range of both birds and mammals. Similarly, the Crested Caracara, which lives across the Americas, is also highly intelligent and social, and will sometimes hunt prey both on its own and occasionally in groups, although when they find carrion, they truly amass in large numbers like this, and often mingle with other species including American black vultures and turkey vultures. Outside of the breeding season, mostly solitary behaviour amongst owls is also usually the norm, but again there are exceptions. One such exception, for example, is the small burrowing owl. This long-legged species often spends a lot of time hunting on the ground, and as its name suggests, it lives and nests mostly in burrows, where they will often live together in colonies and do sometimes produce quite large amounts of offspring. Rather unusually, a group of owls together is known as a parliament, and in the desert or prairie land in which they live, sticking together for burrowing owls is essential for survival. In the end, all of these species described in this video and others that I haven't mentioned are still part of the bird of prey and owl family tree respectively, but it just goes to show that even in a family of animals like these, there are always exceptions to the rule.